not out of the woods yet, but some bullish signs on this Bitcoin chart that the downtrend, I mean, we're talking 2 months of downtrend, could be almost over. Momentum signs that we see happening on this RSI, momentum oscillator. I want to dive into it. I want to really talk about on the shorter term what Bitcoin needs to do to really break this downtrend, this lower high downtrend that Bitcoin is in. And I want to talk about targets. Even the next almost 12 hours, I'm watching on Bitcoin on these charts what Bitcoin is going to do at certain levels. So please hit the subscribe, hit the like. Let's jump into the video. I think I'm actually going to start on this daily, and we're really going to talk about the short term, the momentum shift that may be happening. But the second half of the video, I also want to explain from a fundamental perspective how bullish Bitcoin is right now. And this is a way more exciting chart for me. It's the zoomed out Bitcoin weekly chart of what's happening right now. But I do want to dissect a couple things, and I want to speak to, I think, the frustrations that a lot of people out there, maybe you, have with this move that's happening right now. I want to speak to that, but let's go to the daily. Let's look at it. From a structure standpoint, many of you probably tired of hearing about it. And if you watch YouTube crypto videos, there's probably a lot of repetitive content because right now we're in this lower high downtrend. We're waiting for a shift one way or the other. But here's the structure that Bitcoin formed after getting ridiculously overheated. We needed the structure. I'm happy that it happened. And you can see it's just a symmetrical triangle. And Bitcoin broke out of that symmetrical triangle back here in like mid-April. This is around a month ago. And the target to the downside is around $52,000, $53,000. So if we have a symmetrical triangle or any pattern, we break to the downside, it is kind of like, dude, just rip the Band-Aid off, right? Like just hit the target. Let's get it over with. Over the years, tracking these patterns and these setups and the consolidations for Bitcoin, it just never happens like that. It's always a grueling process. There's always fake outs, right? We get the breakout and then we get the pullback to test that apex in this case of this triangle. And if you've been watching my videos over the years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The consistency of that is actually pretty encouraging, actually. But nonetheless, it really does make us wait, right? It makes us wait to hit these areas. And the target area to the downside is still in the lower 50s. We're not out of the woods yet in terms of hitting that. And I'm going to discuss that. But signs of momentum shift. I'm going to show you on the momentum oscillator, and then we're going to talk about what Bitcoin needs to do. If we look at the momentum oscillator on a daily, any daily chart on any crypto, just having this happen, this months really of consolidation, right? And this overbought area, this is back in February. So this is months of just falling momentum for Bitcoin. That's a grueling process. And the fact though that Bitcoin has gone through it, that's always such a bullish thing. And just looking back on the history of Bitcoin charts and crypto charts in general, when we survive things like this on the daily, on the weekly chart, things really do, it's kind of the clouds are getting close, in my view, and this is how I've seen it. The clouds are getting close to shifting and the sun kind of shining again on these markets. And you can actually start seeing this happening, right? You see this kind of swing low, and then we have this lower low, and then now we're kind of having almost kind of like inverse head and shoulders type of feel, right? This is a higher low on the RSI. And you can even just see kind of flipping this trend line, Bitcoin just trying to see some support, this yellow moving average line, Bitcoin trying to flip that. It's starting to trend. It's not trending up just yet, but it's trying to flip the trend. And if we just look, and obviously this dip that we've been in this kind of 20, look, you can see 20 to 23% dip or so. Very similar. And we've talked about this. I think I did like a whole video on this. This past dip that we had, this was a 21% dip. And there was a grueling process there, right? Even we see that 20-day moving average crossing below the 50 briefly. But notice, after all of that time of consolidation in the RSI, what began to happen after the swing low? We started to see kind of a higher low. The moving average really did start shifting to the upside. And we go back to the dip before that. Here's another 20-some% dip. Grueling to watch this, right? This was from July to the swing low of September. Bitcoin's just falling. What's going on? But look at the momentum shift on the RSI here. You can just see it's been grueling, and then it puts in its swing low on the RSI. That yellow moving average line starts shifting to the upside, and we start getting those higher lows. If you look at it right now, Bitcoin's at kind of the beginning signs of potentially that type of setup on this chart. Now, on the short term, and I really want to be clear, that's not me saying we've gotten that bullish confirmation, because there's some concerns. We're in this lower high falling environment for Bitcoin. And we've talked about this in the previous video. These lower highs, right? These are kind of a swing high to swing low. These lower high green areas, these are Fibonacci, lower high Fibonacci's. Well, even right now in the very short term from this previous swing high, that rejection at that blue line, that 50-day moving average right there, to the current swing low, and this is a current swing low because it's a very short-term move on the daily, but you can just see even right now, Bitcoin on the very short term has to contend with this. And I think the one thing that is causing me to even chart this lower high Fibonacci, this green range right here, and I'll put a little rectangle. This is the short-term resistance, just in case Bitcoin makes a move that I will be watching. The lower end of that is around 63,400. The upper end, 64,300. That's like $1,000 range, by the way. That can be broken very quickly. The reason I'm charting that is because the way in which Bitcoin is interacting with the 20-day moving average, this green line, Bitcoin currently, and this is on the very short term for today, what I'm watching, around 11 hours left of the daily candle, Bitcoin is currently above that area, right? So it's in between the 20 and below this lower high. If Bitcoin can make a power move, we could see Bitcoin truly get some momentum and start flipping the script on this downtrend. The reason why I'm being cautious is just because we do have this lower high. The 50-day is just above it. The 20-day, we haven't even closed. It's not a closed candle above the 20-day. We could end red today. We could end below the 20-day. And we still just have, very simply, that target to the downside, the lower 50s. Now, I want to point out, if the lower 50s were to be hit, this 200-day moving average is right down here. And if we look back, and I just want, remember that 200-day moving average is right there. Because I'm going to scroll all the way back. We look back at previous cycles, Bitcoin, for instance, in this dip, consolidating above the 200-day moving average before going higher. Even more relevant, the cycle before Bitcoin, this is a very similar move happening for Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin, the cycle before in 2017, this was a double top concern. If I zoom all the way out, here's the all-time high of 2013. Double top concern. Bitcoin really was falling just above the 200. A very similar move to what's happening for Bitcoin. Those bull market doors being revisited just above the 200. And if we go look at Bitcoin right now, you can see very similar moves, right? The bull market doors, if I can ever get there, you can see there's that yellow area being tested. There's the triple top concern. A lot of people talking about the triple top concern this cycle around, and we still have the 200-day down there. So that target to the downside, even though it will be ugly, it could really have a lot of similarities to Bitcoin in that 2017 move. And this time around, it's happening earlier. This is right after Bitcoin halving. For me, that's bullish on the macro. Speaking of the macro, here's the macro. If we look at it on the macro and we get it just a little bit of a different perspective, here's this move in the last cycle that I just talked about on the daily when Bitcoin was visiting just above the 200-day moving average. There's a 20% move for Bitcoin. On the macro, though, you don't have any of this, right? None of this has happened. We don't know that bull market was about to happen. But check this out. Bull market high. A lot of people just held through the bear market. We went through this lower high, held through COVID, and then all of a sudden Bitcoin's falling at another lower high, right? That looked like a macro lower high in this 20% dip just above that 200-day, right around the 20-week. And then it was actually just right before Bitcoin exploded. And then if we go and get some context to the cycle before that, check this out. Look at this move, the very similar move that's happening right now from that swing high to swing low, the double top concern. We're looking at around 34%. That was the move right above the 200-day moving average. This is on a weekly, but that was that move that we just looked at on the daily. There was that double top concern. And what did Bitcoin do? It put in the dip, and then it was off to the races. And if we look at the momentum oscillator for Bitcoin right now, for me, this looks like just a very bullish, healthy consolidation on the RSI, the slower moving momentum oscillator. And when we start talking about the short term, because we were just looking at targets, we're looking at potentially Bitcoin escaping this downward momentum. when I look at the stock RSI, a quicker moving momentum oscillator that you see here, you can see Bitcoin oversold. When I look at moves like this, I'm telling you, this, and this was the last time it was oversold right here on that stock RSI. It's at the very least a good idea to start preparing for a momentum shift. It's not a guarantee, but when Bitcoin's oversold on this quicker moving momentum oscillator, there is a very quick move that could potentially be getting ready to happen. I'm talking about a very quick bullish move. So all of that tying together into the short-term daily charts. This is what I'm watching. The resistance target area, we just discussed that lower high Fibonacci, and it's around 64,400 to 63,400. It's a $1,000 range, and it's just above where Bitcoin is right now. And how does Bitcoin close today's daily candle? And then to the downside, I just know in my mind that there's the target. It's in play. And even that target in the lower 50s, that's a $10,000 move or so to the downside. It is what it is to me. I zoom out on the macro. I see what's going on. I see as it's compared to previous cycles, and I'm just here tracking it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This is the Bitcoin video to get this week started. Let's see how this plays out. I appreciate you watching. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. Turn the notifications on. Smash that like if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.